everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio. Today I'm sharing with you a watercolor workout page that I did in my small watercolor journal from Arteza. This has watercolor paper in it. And the first thing that I'm doing is doing some sketching. I like to make my sketches, even for watercolor. I think that drawing something first and then coloring it is really just kind of my style. I don't usually wing it, even with watercolor, although I do need to work on that because I should be able to just paint and not think about lines and drawing. But in this case, I wanted to draw these funny little characters that are supposed to be cats, and I guess I'm going to call them Quirky cats because I have the Quirky birds, and they're just funny little characters. I'm using a Stabilo ALL water-soluble pencil, which is a graphite gray pencil, and trying to draw fairly lightly. I haven't treated this paper at all, and after doing this project, I wish that I would have added watercolor ground. The water-soluble product that I'm going to use today is Neocolor II water-soluble crayons or pastels. Sometimes they're called pastels. They're made in Switzerland, and I love this product. On this particular paper, which I haven't tried it on yet, the colors really faded. So I think that had I put some watercolor ground on this first and gave it a sealed surface in which to work on, it would have turned out better. However, I didn't, and I wasn't aware of it, wasn't aware of what was going to happen until I did it. So that's just how it is. I guess I should say that for those of you who are new to watercolor, watercolor ground is a medium. You know, you've got the gesso when you're doing acrylic painting. That kind of seals the surface and preps it and gets it ready. Watercolor ground is the same type of an idea. It has a little bit of grit to it or tooth, and it seals the paper a little bit to give you a better surface to work on. So I will try it later on in this book, but my sketch was already done, so my sketches were already done. Let's see, what else can I talk about? Oh, watercolor workout. Hashtag watercolor workout. What is that? That is a 2-month-long focus on using water-soluble mediums in our group Art Joy of Sharing. I actually did this project during our Art Joy of Sharing live stream show. We live stream every Thursday at 10:30 Central Time. So every Thursday, it's on a different channel, the Art Joy of Sharing channel. There'll be a link in the description box below, and you can come in and join us live. So that would be in real time. This, of course, is a sped up version of the project that I did, and you should join us. Use water-soluble media. You can use anything that's water-soluble during this month with this theme, and you can add the hashtag when you post it anywhere on social media for other people to see and enjoy. So once I was done with my sketch, then I lightened up the lines by using a white eraser and erasing a lot of the lines. I don't want them to be too strong. And then I have out my Neocolor II water-soluble crayons, and I have a piece of waxed paper. And what I should be using is palette paper, but I don't have any, so I'm going to use wax paper. I'm writing the crayon onto the paper and then picking it up with a brush. And the first two colors that I'm using here on the background are indigo and malachite. And they look really great at first. They look bright and intense and nice, and then they start to fade as they dry. And I just don't know why that is. And that's the reason that I think that I should have had some watercolor ground on the paper first, because this didn't really happen with the tube watercolors that I've used so far in this book. I should have been making a lot more watercolor pages, but I have been way too busy with projects, just all kinds of things. People moving in and remodeling and just crazy amounts of stuff. people being out of town. So I'm picking up all the slack from things that in my family that other people do usually, and I just haven't had time to mess around with my watercolor journal like I would have liked to all this month. But I am adding the indigo and then throwing in a little bit of that malachite as well. It's supposed to be a night sky, and I'd already colored in the moon. I used 4 different colors of yellow and orangey red colors, and I colored them directly onto the paper instead of doing it onto the wax paper and picking it up. Of course, when you're using like a tube watercolor or a pan watercolor, you pick that up with your brush, and that's what I was trying to show here, is that you can do that with these crayons as well by just writing some of the pigment out and then picking it up with the brush. And this is my good quality watercolor brush. I do end up switching to a water tank brush eventually. So now I have like a still the malachite color, and then I have a lighter green. I think it was emerald green, but I can't remember for sure. On the live stream, if you really must know, on the live stream I called out all the colors I was using as I was using them, reading them off the crayons. But right now I'm not really remembering. But I like to use more than one color, so I like to blend them together. And I am going back over trying to intensify the color because I am seeing some of the color fading, and you can see how much the background has already faded. It's just weird. It's weird. I don't know if it's a combination of the chemicals, a chemical reaction between these crayons and this watercolor paper. I don't generally have this problem, so I don't know why it's happening. I can't explain it. But it just kept fading. It's still cute, but I wanted it bright. I wanted it to be, you know, in your face bright, and I just couldn't get it. I don't know. It's weird. Weird. So then I decide, okay, well, I want to make it darker, so I'm going to go around and I'm going to do some of the crayon direct to the paper. And this is when I switched to the synthetic water tank brush because I didn't want to scrub with my expensive watercolor brush that I have. I didn't want to, I just, you know, you spend that much money on a brush, you're just like, yeah, I don't want to scrub with it. So I'm fine with these water tank brushes have like a synthetic bristle, so they're very sturdy. And so that's when I switched over to those brushes. So that made it like nice dark shadow around my cats, but it's still faded. It's still faded. That's when I gave up. So I'm starting to color the cats. I've got a pistachio color and I've got like a bright greenish yellow. And I'm coloring in the background of the cat, I guess you would say. I am aware that I'm going to do pen work over the top of these later when they're dry because I know that I'm just going to like that. For this type of a character, funny, you know, it's got to have illustration lines and details. So I do plan to use a fine tip Posca pen and do line work over this later, which isn't a traditional watercolor. I'm using water-soluble media in my watercolor journal, but, you know, with the caveat that this is an illustration, a fun watercolored illustration. Someone in the live stream chat said that I should name these characters and then write a children's book about them and illustrate it myself, and it would be a fun children's book, which is a great idea. If I had time, I would do that. That would be fun. I don't know what I would write, though. That's the thing. The illustration, not a problem, but what to write about is a different kind of an idea. Not that I don't think I could, but that I'm just like, it's out of my comfort zone. So then I made my little spots on my little calico cat. I outlined them with pink, and I moved on to let that one dry a little bit. I'm moving to the next one, which is kind of a polka dot cat. And I've got orange, yellow, and then one that's actually named orange, which also seems like an orange yellow, but one's lighter than the other, and colored in the background of that cat. Went back and I'm starting to deepen some of the colors on the other cat because they again are fading. So I just keep going over it. I think the cats should have a little bit of a blush on their cheeks, and they have these funny long noses with heart shapes. Cat noses to me look like heart shapes. Dog noses too look like heart shapes to me because the bottom of the nose goes into that little line that goes into their lips. So it's just kind of funny little characters. Then I'm trying to decide what color is the third one going to be, and I decide on this kind of periwinkle color, which should be so much lighter than the background color of purple indigo. Not purple, but indigo. It's not that much lighter because of that weird fading. I don't get it. I don't get it. So I blended that one with some sky blue. I'm using two colors on the backgrounds. This cat doesn't have any pattern. It's just one solid color. So, you know, sometimes cats are a solid color. Maybe they're black or maybe they're white. Maybe they're kind of a solid gray. So, not a calico or a spotty or anything on the third cat. I used some ultramarine blue for the paws and around the eyes. I forgot to color the tail on the middle cat, so I have to go back and do it. Eventually. This cat has its little tongue sticking out. I don't think that you'd ever see cats like these in these colors, but you get the idea. They're just for fun. Coloring in some dots on this one in the tail. Oh, there's the tail. That's right. Huh. Forgot about that. So I'm just about done with the coloring. I'm going to move on to the pen work pretty soon. Darkening up the blush on their cheeks. Little cuties. I guess I'm still wanting to brighten up and lighten up. These would have been so much different if that fading hadn't happened. And I don't think it's a commentary on Neocolor II because I use these products all the time in my mixed media and I don't have this fading problem. So I just really think it has something to do with the chemistry between the Neocolor II crayons and the Arteza watercolor paper. If it's maybe a pH situation or an acid situation, I don't know. I just don't know. So just still brightening up, trying to add a second layer to brighten up a little bit. And then I move on to pen work. Put all these crayons back in my container. So I'm going to use a fine tip black Posca pen. It's not the extra fine one, it's the fine tip. They've got several different widths of tips for Posca. Posca is a acrylic paint pen. So it's got fluid acrylic ink inside of it. It writes very well over everything, including this rather waxy Neocolor II. It does write over the top of it very nicely. Of course, those are in that crayon form. They have some type of a waxy base that the pigment is encapsulated in. So some people have trouble drawing over the top of Neocolor II. These Posca pens do it without any problem. However, had I had the watercolor ground on there, I would have had to be a little bit more careful with the Posca pens because they will splatter if they hit something rough on the page. And the watercolor ground, of course, has some type of a grit to it, some type of sandy something inside of it. So you do have to make sure that you're not pressing down too hard. Also, occasionally you'll need to clear the tip of the Posca pen by just writing it off and rubbing it off on another piece of paper. And you'll see me do that at some point here. I think it's during this one that it starts to just not come out. There we go. All right. So see, I just cleared it. I just ran it back and forth, pressed down a little bit to get the ink flowing again, because that waxiness of the crayon can get onto the pen tip a little bit and, you know, just make it harder for the ink to flow. So that looks so much better. I add some white highlights and some white stars in the sky. Just, you know, for fun. Because if you have a moon, you should have stars, right? And there would be little highlights because the moon is shining down. Sometimes with the white pen, you need to shake it to get everything mixed up inside of it so that you have a more opaque white coming out of it. Can get a little bit separated. So shaking Posca pens is a good idea. Make sure that you have the cap on, though, because if you shake it and the cap's not on it, it's going to go all over. You probably don't want to splatter your entire world with acrylic ink. So I still just wanted some more punch. I wanted this to be a lot of contrast. And so I decided, since I couldn't get the crayon to stop fading, that I would go ahead and add shadows with my Stabilo ALL black pencil. So this is a highly water reactive pencil, and I'm using it, I'm activating it with my water tank brush that I've been using, and that makes a difference to me. That makes those cats come out from the background and, you know, be more intense, because I just couldn't get the background to be dark enough for the way I wanted it. So I hope you've enjoyed this little watercolor workout, and if you want to come join us at Art Joy of Sharing, the link will be below. If you want to see the real-time, the link for that, for the Art Joy of Sharing live stream real-time show, will be below. And also, I'll put some links for the products. Be sure to give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment or question below. That's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.